Welcome to Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. This is not your typical financial radio show. As a licensed CPA, insurance agent, and investment advisory representative, Chris coaches his clients on a holistic view of financial well-being with an objective of providing a complete financial strategy to fund life's goals. Chris is here to guide you down the path to the financial serenity you deserve. Now, here's Chris Cooper.
All right. Good morning, folks. We are kicking off the month of June. So summer is officially here, and we're going to do something fun this month. We are going to start off with a little bit of a series going on, a little bit of a theme. We're going to see if we can figure this out, figure out the right theme here, and it's not going to be hard to figure out, but it's going to be fairly different guests talking very similar kind of concepts for the month of June. So starting it off, we have got Jim Brennan with McKelvey Homes. Jim, how are you?
Fine. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. And I've also got special guest Dave Puricelli, which is just fun to say, so I'm going to say it with a really cool voice as well. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Dave is in Cottleville Trails is where he is, so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about Cottleville. But let's kick this off, Dave and Jim, with a little bit. So talk to me about the McKelvey story. What makes McKelvey so special?
Well, thank you, Chris. McKelvey is the oldest builder here in St. Louis. It was established back in 1898.
Wow.
By James McKelvey.
Okay.
Who was actually a building commissioner in the city of St. Louis. Back then, builders built everything, industrial, commercial, as well as homes. In fact, McKelvey Homes is credited with building the first gas station in the city of St. Louis.
No kidding.
And after 3 generations of McKelveys, Bob McKelvey, 25 years ago, was 72 years old, and he said he would do it as long as it was fun.
That's fun. That's nice. I love it.
72. Well, I'm 73 now, so it's still fun for me. It's even
as long
more
as
fun.
It's fun. Well, that's great, right?
Yeah,
as long as you enjoy it.
And Bob, fortunately, approached me, and the Brennan family was able to purchase McKelvey Homes. But Bob, I got to tell you a little bit about, and I know you're going to be moving into Cottleville Trails.
We love it there. How can you not?
And it's the hottest place around.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, and it's great with all the lakes and
Yeah.
with the walking, taking your golf cart. I think all the trails that are there. It's just really vibrant. I think the population's doubled here in the city in a short period of time. But Bob, back in the 50s, after he got out of the Air Force, took a little 2-lane bridge from North St. Louis over into St. Charles.
Okay.
And he
looked a little bit different then, didn't it?
It was very different. And I know what you're paying for homes and what we're selling them for. But back then, Bob had a guy that was developing lots, and they were $1,000 each. And the guy had sold 10 lots. And Bob said, "Who's going to build the houses?" And he says, "Well, they don't have a builder yet."
Yeah.
So Bob got their names, wrote them a letter, not an email or a text, but wrote them a letter and said, "I will build you a McKelvey home for $10,000. And all 10 of those people said, yes.
I like it. Yeah, I would do that. Can I still do that?
We'll get back with you on that. But what he did is he went to his dad, and he said, "Dad," his dad was James McKelvey also. And he said, "Dad, we need to move to St. Charles." And his dad said, "You're nuts. Nobody wants to live out there." And he said, "Dad, you're too old." Well, Patty McKelvey, and that was the end of the story. And several years later, Patty McKelvey told me, "Yeah, I remember my dad saying that." And Grandpa moved to Florida the next week. Well, Bob and McKelvey Homes were real pioneers in St. Charles and really seen it grown.
It's amazing the growth in St. Charles
really
County
is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I grew up in Chesterfield, and I remember just in the time frame, when I grew up to now, the differences. It's incredible, where it's come.
It's a golden triangle.
So
golden
absolutely.
Triangle. The roads, all the new restaurants, all the schools are the best. You know that.
Great schools. Absolutely. Yeah.
Safe. Easy
Great
to get
community.
around.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So what do you think is the biggest difference because there's a lot of builders out there, and there's a lot of high quality builders in this area as well. I know why I really have enjoyed working with McKelvey, but tell me what you think makes McKelvey so special.
Well, the first thing is really prime locations.
Yeah.
You hear it in real estate all the time. Location, location.
That's the 3 rules, isn't it?
Right. And it took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah.
I cannot afford to buy a cheap location.
Uh-huh.
And so we pay the top dollar, just like people buying the best steak or the best pair of shoes or clothing. We pay top dollar for the best location.
Okay.
That's where it starts. Number 2, for us, is our legendary quality.
Yeah.
Craftsmen that have worked with us for years. The third thing for me is really the personal service.
Yeah.
I talk to every homeowner. I used to go to every closing, and then in COVID, they told me no.
Yeah.
I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. I call every homeowner, and every homeowner gets my personal cell.
Okay.
And I tell them, if you ever feel we're not living up to your expectation, give me a call. And I get calls.
That's great.
And we don't do everything perfect, but it's not for a lack of trying. And really, we try to embrace any kind of mistake that we make to do better the next time.
Yeah.
So we're always in that search for perfection.
Yeah.
And our floor plans, we let people customize quite a bit.
You do. And I've been able to do that as well, actually.
And I've sold so many homes over the years. I've been in this industry a long time.
Yeah.
I like to go to the local restaurants. And if I want a different kind of sauce, or I don't want to hear no substitutions.
Yeah.
And you're paying so much money for a home, you ought to have it the way you want it.
Yeah.
And so and you know what? We learn a lot from people like you that say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to do a man cave. I want to do a mother-in-law suite. I want 2 masters. We do a lot of cultural buyers where they want their parents with them.
Sure.
And I remember building a home for somebody many years ago, and they were doing 2 masters. And they said, in America, many times, and you mentioned to this earlier, many times when people get old, they send their folks off to a nursing home.
Yeah, we have to think about these things for sure.
And he said, in our culture, that's when our parents need us.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're going to have them near us in our home. And they share it.
Yeah.
And, now we've got plans that have the in-law suites, but we always allow people to change.
Yeah.
I sold a home many years ago, and I asked them at closing, why'd you buy a home from me? And they said, a window in the laundry room. I said, what? They had bought a home from another builder. They had all the money in, all the colors in.
Yeah.
They were ready to break ground. And they said, we'd like to add a window in the laundry room. And his builder said, what do you think we are, a custom builder?
Oh, geez.
So they came into one of our communities, and they said, hey, can I put a window in the laundry room? And our salesperson said, how big of a window do you want? So they
Dave,
canceled.
I could see you saying that, and probably in those exact words.
Absolutely, Chris.
Well, and so what they did was they canceled that contract and came and built a house with us. So when you have those kind of experiences, and it's really the personal attention.
It is.
And, I tell people all the time, we don't rest on our reputation. For 127 years. We have to earn it every day.
Yeah.
So ask around. Ask people about the integrity. Yeah. That's the number one for me. How do you want to be remembered?
Sense. Absolutely. That experience matters, right? And you got to have the quality. Quality is important, but it's almost, that's not a differentiator in and of itself, right? It's almost a level of expectation, right? But when you get that personal attention, that quality that comes with it as well, in the great location, that's when you get that trifecta of an experience, right? Because people really want that relationship. And so, Dave, that's really what your role is, right? To create that relationship and make sure you listen to folks and make sure you understand what they need, even if they're really hard to work with, like I know I am.
Oh, so Chris
been telling me about you, Chris.
Yeah, I know. I don't have your cell phone. I know why.
been a pleasure working with you, Chris.
I knew he'd say that. Good one over here, Jim. He's a good one.
He's great.
So, Dave, tell me a little bit about what makes Cottleville Trails experience so much really fun to be a part of, because I know that's where you spend a lot of your time these days, and I'm looking forward to spending some time there myself. So,
yeah, Cottleville, Chris, is really the hidden gem of St. Charles, if you look at it in that way. As Jim touched earlier, it's got so much to offer, not only just beautiful homes that we build and stay with you throughout that whole experience, even after the sale of your home. But when you're in that community, it's just, as Jim said, very vibrant, almost has a serene feeling. It's got 6 beautiful lakes, 5 miles of walking trails, golf cart community. So it's fun around 5:30, sometimes even later, knowing that Jim knows I'm putting in the hours, is you'll see folks, you don't see cars anymore. You see a really solid family community of people going around in their golf carts, and all of them end up meeting together right down in downtown Cottleville, which is less than 1 mile away.
Right.
And then what Cottleville in itself has to offer is really big on the appeal of Cottleville Trails community. You got Frankie Martin's, you've got BMO's, you've got Menino's Meat Market. You've got anything and everything you need down there. So it's just a really fantastic place.
Yeah, it seems it's been fun watching that area grow. And at first it was like, wow, this is what's going to happen here. And then all of a sudden the subdivision started coming around right behind it. And one of the things that drew us to the area is we were just thinking about houses and things. And she goes, so what are you really looking for? Where do you want to see yourself, landing? And she goes, I want a place where I can go with my grandkids on a bike ride to go get ice cream. And I'm like, well, I think we just narrowed our search quite a bit.
Yeah. It's very unique there.
It is
you don't
very
have
unique.
that.
No, it's not. It's very rare to see that. So we looked at some other places, and you got to do some due diligence when you look at homes. But Jim, to your point, the customization. I don't think Dave has ever said no in some of the things that I've wanted to look at. And he has said, well, that's a cool thing we can think. Let's see what that looks like. And sometimes I've told myself, no, that doesn't make sense, right? And there's some things that, McKelvey says, hey, this is a great thing to think about or do, but maybe that's something down the road, right? Because you guys have to move on from your buildings too. You got to move on and do other things, right? But the little customizations, like I kind of did a little bit of a unique thing on my house. We did a kind of combination of 2 existing floor plans within 2 homes, right?
Correct.
You've got kind of a little bit of a modular design in some of your footprints, which gives you the ability to not necessarily just have to go back to the drawing board all the time and start from scratch. You can kind of build a little bit of customization and tweaks without starting with a whole new blueprint design. Is that something I kind of noticed?
You hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
There's so many, there's always economies of scale.
Right.
And it is more challenging, more difficult to allow people to make these kind of changes.
Yeah.
I tell my wife all the time, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And that's what sets us apart. Why McKelvey? You're going to pay top dollar. You want it the way you want it. And then you can appreciate that for years to come.
Right.
And we learn from that same process. But if it can physically be done, we're not going to tell you no. Now, it may take longer. It may cost more.
Right.
It'd be a lot easier for our purchasing people and our construction experts and our subcontractors and suppliers to just do the same thing over and over and over. But I tell you, they really enjoy the variety. And no 2 homes are alike.
Yeah.
And one of the things, when you drive through our neighborhoods, and I hear it all the time, they look different. They're there for years to come.
Yeah.
And it's not a cookie cutter with and it takes the fine eye. But by taking that platform of a portfolio of homes, that we've narrowed the cost down and then incrementally enlarged it or moved things around,
Sure.
you're getting the best possible value.
Right.
We've been through so many of these situations where people want us to do a custom home. We hire an architect, they hire an architect, they design it the way they want it, and then they get the number. And then they say, I got one going on right now with a friend for 50 years. And he goes, okay, well, what do you have that's close to that that we can modify? And really, do you do a custom suit? Or do you take one off the rack and tailor it to you?
And so to me, and that's a great analogy, right? I need a baseline. I need a foundation. Do we all want to have a personal touch? Everyone's situation is uniquely different. Everyone's needs are different. But having a baseline makes a whole process, which building a home is tough. Like, you guys know a lot about this stuff. I do not, right? I like having a baseline. Then I can look to and say, okay, this makes sense. Now is this possible? Little things to add that little personal touch, which is, I think, why the communities all have a little bit of a different connection, little different flair to
that's
them.
why you're successful in your business.
I try to be.
Well, because you understand. I mean, you cut everything down. You're an accountant by training. I am too. And you try to say, what's the most efficient way? What's the best value? How do I achieve it with the least amount of effort and the highest possible return?
Makes sense.
That's what
right?
creates value.
It does, absolutely. But you have to keep those structures in place at some point because those things make a difference, right? But we also have to take those little differences. And I think that getting a little bit of that mix of both makes it a very successful and efficient process. Because otherwise, you just sit there and it takes too long.
And I got to ask you, you're very successful in your business. What differentiates you from the next guy?
So to me, I like I hate the cookie cutter approach as well, right? And that's what I kind of call it, the big box feel, right? But that personal attention, because to me, quality is an expectation. In my line of business, it is expected that we're going to have certain fiduciary things in place, right? To make sure we're good stewards of assets. That's not a unique quality, right? It's about that personal attention and that ability to understand different connections, different goals, different personalities, and quite frankly, how to make it easier for people. I mean, people talk about money and they don't like to, right? Immediately, shoulders get crossed up, right? We kind of shut down, right? So we need to be able to open up and have a really fun, good conversation. And that is where Dave made a big difference in our decision process.
He's awesome.
Right?
I got to tell you, I've known him a long time, and
he's told me how you guys met too, by the way, and how you got to recruit him over and everything, or maybe I don't know, but or did you seek them out? What's the deal here?
So going back to where Jim and I first met would have been back in 2003. I was 16 years old, started out at St. Albans as a caddy.
Nice.
And then Jim and I crossed paths later on back in 2018 when I started working out at Belle Reef Country Club.
Yeah.
And went up to Jim, said, "Hey, Jim, you may not remember me." And Jim, being Jim, remembers everybody he meets. Said, "Dave, it's been a while. How you doing?" I said, "Jim, I'm doing great." And then threw a curveball at him and said, "Hey, is your bag still in storage slot 87 over there in St. Albans?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Wow, that's impressive." But Chris, I had spent a majority of my business career in food and beverage, and then getting older, the hours just getting quirky, and had to find something different. So I actually seeked out one.
So you actually like the hours of working every weekend, evening?
Jim, more importantly, I mean the hours. It's fine to work a 10-hour day, but when you get off at 6 o'clock versus going in at 6 o'clock, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
But I seeked out one of Jim's very good friends. His name was Jeff Drew, a.k.a. the King, is what he goes by as his name, and said, "King, I'm really looking for a job. I got to get out of food and beverage." He said, "David, give me a couple days, and I'll have an answer for you." He came back to me with 30 names, and he said, "I keep coming to one name, Jim Brennan." I said, "I never even thought." I said, "That sounds fantastic. I would love to be able to go take my chance at selling some homes for Jim Brennan."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, that's great because you have an interview on Tuesday." And then
now, was this on the golf course or not?
This was all over phone call.
All right, because I know you guys are both big golfers here. So
Yeah, absolutely. But from there, I mean, when the moment he told me Jim, not only driving around seeing the quality homes that he built, but I knew Jim as a human being, which even made it more attractive to be able to go work for him.
Yeah.
One of the most philanthropic people you'll ever meet within the St. Louis area, constantly gives back what he's made in his career and really supports his community very well. So for me, it was an absolute no-brainer when that opportunity came to me to go work at McKelvey and work for Jim Brennan.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And what you do to help people is I think what makes a big difference too. And I think that speaks to values. I've had a lot of conversations with everybody involved in the process, which is I think another real awesome thing about the McKelvey experience. My project manager, Cherry, fantastic.
Terry Scott's unbelievable.
Just such a fun dude. I give him some trouble every now and then. I think everyone I talk to that I say that to, they're like, "Good, he deserves some trouble," but he gives it right back, which is kind of fun too. So
was he in the Navy? I mean, he's devoted quite a bit to the service of our country, and he always has some kind of vet hat on, But he's just a wonderful person, and I think, I owe the King. I started calling him the Count the other day instead of the King, but the best attribute I could say about Dave is that he cares.
Yeah,
and that's really what we want to do in our company. Treat others the way you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
Family and faith are the most important.
Absolutely.
How do you want to be remembered? And we may not do it right every time, but it's not for a lack of trying.
Yeah.
And if we truly care, and we care about the community, for every home that we build, we make a donation of $1,898 to a charity. And that's what my parents taught me. My dad on his deathbed went over some of the charities that he gave to.
So I caught the reference there to, what was the dollar amount again?
$1,898.
Yeah, say that one little differently.
$1,898.
That's the one so why 1898? You mentioned it earlier.
That's the year McKelvey Homes was started.
Incredible.
And the tradition and the history are important to us.
Yeah.
And
that's what I wanted to make sure I highlighted there. So thank you, Jim. Sorry for going through that with you a few times.
You're in the financial. Is the market always going to be smooth?
It's not.
One of my favorite quotes is, "A smooth sea does not a sailor make." And when you think about McKelvey Homes, how many recessions?
Yeah.
The Depression.
Mm-hmm.
How many? When you're as old as I am, you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And you need a steady hand on the rudder through thick and thin. We're not. Our company is very financially solid. When we bought it, I mentioned this to you earlier. The way we were able to buy McKelvey Homes was leveraging my existing home, Rose, in our home.
Yeah.
And owning a home, especially a brand new home, is really the American dream.
It is.
And the second one is owning your own business.
And you were able to utilize both with really similar asset structures. I mean, at the end of the day.
Wouldn't be here today without it. And
Absolutely.
I hear people say, oh, it's cheaper to rent. I say, you know the numbers.
I do.
Maybe if you look at one just snapshot of the market and say, hey, it's too risky to be in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
But then look at what's happened. It's up and down. But in the long term, it's a long-term investment.
Yeah.
And the pride of ownership and the stability it brings to your family, especially if you're in a place like Otterville Trails. Because
we're so excited.
I mean, I wish I had those to sell over again because it's one of the fastest selling. I think it's the fastest selling community in St. Charles.
And it's got a lot to offer, and I think that's a big deal with it. So, it's your home is a big asset, but taking pride in your home ownership is great. And you mentioned the business owner thing too. There is no better pride you get from working from anybody other than yourself and building something yourself. And, the cool thing is in this country and the way we do things, it takes a little bit of a risk, but you don't have to take the risk by yourself. You can use banking institutions to help do that. It's called leverage and it works. Right. And most people have to do that in order to do those things, including home ownership. But a lot of people will say, I want to get my home paid off. But as you know, in the business world, the cheapest money you're going to get is using your home as collateral. I mean, you can't get an interest rate any other way than that. So any better than that.
And interest rates. I got to talk about interest rates because
it's an interesting time for that.
Rose and I bought our first home in 1982. Our first mortgage, Dave. I don't know. You were probably not born then, but 17%.
Oh, he's being really quiet here.
17%.
I was going to say, I was actually going to have Dave guess it and see what he was going to say.
Are you nuts? If you say that to somebody now, are you nuts? 17%?
Yeah.
The rates now are in the 6s, 7s, but
we think it's terrible, right?
It's terrible.
But is it really terrible?
Well, you know what?
Not.
You're going to get a great price on the house.
Yeah.
And what happens once, and I know there's uncertainty in the market, and what I've found is when there's uncertainty, that's the best time to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're an expert on this stuff. You know more about it than I do. But we refinanced in a few years and brought it down to 12. I just dreamed about the day I might be
sub 10. Holy cow!
Single digit. Wow! If I could only get to 9.9.
Yeah.
And now the market rates are in the 6s and 7s. But we have a special actually with buying down the rate, 5.5.
That's pretty incredible.
30-year fix.
That's pretty incredible.
Now, it's not on every home. It's on the completed ones because you got an extended period.
Sure.
They have to lock it and close quickly. But and one of the things for us, we've decided that we have so much confidence in the market. We've got over $30 million in inventory homes that are available. About half our business so far this year are inventory homes. People that are ready to move in. And they're getting great deals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's also nice for folks that want to build because you've got something where you can actually see and feel and walk through as well.
Most people are visual.
I know I
displays. I know it when I'll see it.
Well, and I've had a hard time, and that's one of the. I told Terry, I'm sorry. I walk in all the time on you guys, and thank you. I'm not bothering you, but
you're our customer. We got to take care of you.
I love just walking in and seeing the difference and watching it go from whoa, this feels really small, to all of a sudden going, wow, this looks really big. And then all of a sudden seeing it come together. It goes through these stages where it looks small, then it gets bigger, and then shrinks again. It's the weirdest thing. But watching it come together has been amazing.
And it's always changing. It's kind of like going to Baskin Robbins and you're eating a pistachio ice cream, then you see somebody come by with Rocky Road, and you go, oh boy, I wish I would have had that. Yeah.
And I'm visual. I think most people are. I think I can't see it until I cannot understand and comprehend. And I'm a numbers guy. Yeah. But when you have that jar with you figure out you're guessing how many jelly beans are in the jar. Sure. I have no clue. I cannot comprehend this kind of stuff. I have to actually.
Those are the people that are good on Jeopardy.
Right. I could figure it out. You give me some time and let me touch some things and move some things around. I could figure it out, but I'd want to be too precise, I guess. So Terry's been helpful with, no, you're going to be good. This is how it works. And, very helpful from my perspective on that. So
that's great.
Yeah. Well, cool.
I may not need to call you at closing because I'm getting all this feedback, but I know there's times where, we don't do everything right.
Yeah.
And we say, what could we do to avoid that in the future? How do we fix it now?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to caring. And
it does.
And, I think the world of Dave, and it's all about service.
100%.
We're working for you, and we appreciate your business.
Yeah. And it shows through the whole entire process. And it's not the beginning, it's not the ending. It goes through that entire chain of events. And that's how you end up with that good experience, always looking for that feedback. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes a successful product. And then ultimately, that's what makes sure that people keep coming back. And making sure their friends also do, right? Absolutely.
I live in a neighborhood that I built, and some of my best friends started as customers.
Yeah.
And
people
ask them how they do, and they say the same thing. House is still standing.
Isn't that cool when the worlds,
really
and I think as business owners, that's what happens to us, right? The worlds tend to collide, right? Your personal side, your business side, it ends up kind of melding together. And it takes a certain personality to enjoy that. But I couldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. I could tell. I could see how passionate you are about it.
It makes it different. I'm very proud of the fact that I have such good relationships with so many folks that we're like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And we just get to go out and hang out at Frankie's. So it's kind of fun. So
it's a good spot to go.
Not a bad place to go. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I could talk forever with you guys. But I know you guys got to get back to work and start building some homes. So
especially yours. Great, Chris. Thanks for the business.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate the time with you today.
No worries.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Chris.
it. Folks, since 1898, McKelvey Homes has been around serving the St. Louis community. That is incredible. We talk to a lot of businesses, and a lot of businesses have succession goals, legacy goals. And it is absolutely amazing to speak to a business that has been around serving this community for 127 years. Donating $1,898 to charities with every home built is amazing as well. So serving that community, being a part of that community, it is something that really businesses need to think about and understand and be an impactful, steward of the community. It's something we are a big fan of, and big involvement in our community as well at Serenity Wealth. And it's because of those values. It's those shared values that we have as well. Jim talked a lot about those values as well, right? So start with a good foundation, right? In the real estate business, prime location. So you got to have the right location in order to make sure you've got the right place overall for the residents and for those communities, right? So if in McKelvey, that's locations, that's where the subdivisions need to be, your homes. In my world, that's getting the right foundation for investments, right? Getting the right foundation for what type of account you should have, where you need to be saving, what type of investment strategy makes sense to meet your goals and objectives. That's really that foundation that we need to make, because you can't build a great community without that right foundation, okay? Right off of that, Jim goes into quality, right? The craftsmanship of the McKelvey brand, the McKelvey home, right? You have to have that good quality control in place to ensure your brand, your image, your reputation, and those that you serve are well taken care of for that long run, right? So when we think about an investment philosophy, what does that mean? That means making sure that that quality exists within your portfolio, right? Staying diversified, having conversations, staying rebalanced, connecting, making sure your goals are always first and foremost, right? Things change from time to time. We need to rebalance. We need to shift. We don't always have the ability to stay in the same positions for 20, 30 years, right? At first, we might be able to be more aggressive. Then we need to start thinking about that income strategy. What does that look like? How do we think about retirement planning? How are our goals going to shift over time, right? And that final piece, which is my favorite, that customer satisfaction, that customer experience, that engagement that we have with our community. And that gets back to people, right? You got to have the right people, right? So we talked to Dave over at Cottleville Trails. Dave's wonderful. He is amazing. He is the one that made sure that the Cottleville Trails experience is the one that we were looking for in our situation. And I got to tell you, it makes a difference. The community engagement, the personal attention, the quality conversation, that's really what life's about. That's what makes sure your investment situation makes the most sense for you. That's what makes sense. That's how your financials make the most sense for you. You got to understand it's a complicated world, right? There's financial investments, complicated discussions at times, but we can make sure goals, objectives are aligned first and foremost, and then explained in the right way to make sure it makes sense for individuals. That's what we focus on here at Serenity Wealth. That is what we call the path to financial serenity. And you know what? You deserve it too. And have a great week.
Serenity Now! This is Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper. Request a free copy of Chris's latest book, The New Holistic Retirement, by visiting SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.